So essentially I transformed my house into a lab for 4 months during lockdown. Yeah. More than a hope, a certainty that at some point people will have to move away from petroleum plastic because oil is a finite resource. Yeah.
Warning, this show contains upfront and unfiltered opinions. I'm Salber, and I'll be chatting to a bunch of young people to hear what they've been up to as they deal with this mess of a planet we have inherited. Thank you, parents. We'll be diving into the environment, climate change, the psychological repercussions we have been experiencing, the dreams, the dread, the humor, the hope. Oh my God. Now, what next? Let's meet today's guest. Alrighty, so before further ado, please join me in welcoming today's guest, Carlo Fedeli. Hello, Carlo.
Hi.
Thank you for joining me today. Carlo is the co-founder and CEO of Flexi, which he founded in 2021. Flexi produces a material that looks and feels like plastic, but it's entirely biodegradable within weeks. And it's made from red seaweed. Flexi applications include food, dry items, cosmetics, textiles, and the tagline, I love this, the packaging of the future is born in nature, serves its purpose, and returns to nature harmlessly. Super cool.
It kind of is our ethos at Flexi. It's why use a material that lasts thousands of years to package something that's only meant to be there for a few days, weeks, or months at most. There's a mismatch.
Props on the name, Flexi, a very sexy sounding startup. I know that usually the hardest part of the process of creating something is the naming of it. So how did you arrive at the name Flexi?
For the name, it's kind of the natural link of what we're doing with how we're doing it. So Flexi is the contraption of the words flexible and seaweed. Flexible because the very first material that we started with is a thin, transparent, flexible film, and seaweed is where it comes from. So put them together, Flexi. Sounds good, it's catchy, and has stuck with us.
Yeah, super nice. What's the origin story? Where did you start? How did this come about?
So Flexi started as a little side project and interest that I had. Was finishing my master's at Imperial College here in London, and that was in the winter of 2020, around February, just before
Coronavirus!
I got interested into bioplastics in general. I have these little quirks where I get interested into little things sometimes, and then I dive deep. And this, I went a bit deeper than usual. But essentially, for lockdown, when COVID started, I went back home in Monaco where I grew up, and I realized the amount of plastic that was piling up at home through online groceries, Amazon, deliveries and whatnot. Because if you're stuck at home and things have to come to you, they tend to come very overpackaged. It's just too much plastic. And look at existing solutions like other bioplastics and recycling, see where they succeed and where they fail. I thought, let's try and develop something better. So essentially I transformed my house into a lab.
There's a small piece of earth between you and me.
For 4 months during lockdown, and by the end of it I had the very first prototype of what a thin, transparent film was.
Wow, I think that's one of the most productive Corona stories I've ever heard.
More productive than I ever hoped for.
Now you have a company.
I'm on the board of directors.
When you consider the existing solutions on the market, what makes Flexi different?
So when you look at the alternatives that are out there, the majority of them are derived from either food crops, things like corn, sugar, cane, beetroot, potatoes, anything that's very starchy.
My life, it's potato.
They all are resources that require things like arable land, fresh water, pesticides and fertilizers to be grown. Whereas seaweed grows much faster than any of these. The red seaweed that we use, which is sustainably cultivated and has been sustainably cultivated at scale for the past 50 years, takes just 45 days to go from planting to harvest, and it's year-round. It requires no fresh water, obviously, because it grows in the sea. Pesticides and fertilizers, none. And arable land, again, nothing. So that is the big sourcing advantage that we have. And then you have the end-of-life advantage, which is our materials are truly home compostable. They will degrade in nature, and unlike other bioplastics on the market, like PLA, which is the most abundant there, polylactic acid, that is only industrially compostable. So it will degrade within 6 months in an industrial composter. But the truth is that industrial composters are not many. There is a lack of consumer knowledge about what a bioplastic is and how it should be disposed of. If it has to go into an industrial composting facility, and there is a lack of actual collection of that specific waste to bring it to these facilities. So all in all, PLA ends up being just as bad as traditional petroleum plastic because it will not degrade in natural conditions. So that is where we surpass that.
I think for a lot of us, the understanding of the packaging or manufacturing sphere is it's a matrix that is super vague. What are how does that operate? What are the details? How do you guys come into play?
Yes, it is pretty vague. Even more than vague, it's just complicated. The way the supply chain really operates is in the world of plastic, so petroleum. You have obviously those guys extracting the oil and then distillating it and getting out the fractions that they need to make things like polyethylene and polypropylene. And there is a process of transforming the raw material into a pellet, and then that pellet is used in different applications by other converters, and then those are passed on to people who actually put the items in the packaging and then get sold to distribution. What we want to do is we want to develop technologies that can substitute that petroleum item. So whether it is a film of plastic, or we also have technologies to do things which are more rigid. We can do 3D printing as well. And what we want to do is position ourselves upstream of all these guys and actually license our technologies to people who already are doing this. So we don't actually go and put them out of business, but instead we supply them with the solution to essentially stay up to date, to continue doing their business in a new world which is demanding more sustainable solutions than what is currently available on the market, and we can provide them with that solution.
Wow. Within all of that, what would you say has been the greatest obstacle since you started? In 2001, right?
2001, I was 4 years old.
Sorry.
In 3 weeks' time, I'll be turning 5.
You know what I mean? 2021.
Yeah, it would have been maybe a bit too early. No, so I guess the biggest obstacle that we found so far, other than the obvious, let's develop technology that doesn't exist, has come from legislation.
We can't pass it until it's ready, and when it's ready, we'll be ready to pass it.
So things like, again, consumers not knowing the difference between something which is a bioplastic, which is biodegradable. What does biodegradable mean?
What does it mean? What does it mean?
But even more than a consumer, even at a bigger legislative level. So governments don't have a precise definition of what a plastic or a bioplastic is, what should be taxed, what should be allowed, what should be banned. The truth is there's so many plastics out there will never be one to replace them all. But across this broad spectrum, there needs to be a unified decision and definition of what an acceptable bioplastic or an acceptable current plastic replacement is in different industries. What are the standards for it to degrade? How long should it take? What should it degrade into? Now, governments are beginning to pick up and to change, but it just takes a lot of time.
I'm just telling you the truth.
Which is good because it gives us time to prepare, but until then, we have to make it clear what the difference is to the single consumers and to the single businesses.
Well, what would you say keeps you going when you consider all these legislative hurdles?
So there's two parts to it. The first one is maybe a bit romanticized.
Give it to me.
Just the feeling of developing something new, the feeling of being able to do something which has never been done before. We still haven't brought our materials to the wide market yet. We're starting the first pilots. Hopefully we can start selling at a larger scale by the end of this year. But just the feeling of getting there and being so close really keeps me going. The second thing is more than a hope, a certainty that at some point people will have to move away from petroleum plastic because oil is a finite resource. So if it's not today, if it's not in 10 years, not 20 years, at some point people will need to find alternatives. And we know we're developing an alternative which is viable. Now the issue is, will we still be around by then? Hopefully yes. If not, I'm good at conscience that we will have started some sort of revolution to bring people in that direction. The idea of having to move away from plastic is something that will stay forever.
Absolutely. Considering existence, the earth, your work, what are you afraid of, Carlo?
What am I not afraid of? That's probably an easier one. Well, I'm afraid of, as every founder, I guess, afraid of failing. There's a lot at stake, right? There's the whole responsibility that comes with running a business, trying to make it, selling promises and hoping to deliver them. And then there's the whole fear of, what if we make it?
We made it!
Like, what happens? Like, we've never been in that position yet, right? So we need to understand that what we do could have a really big impact. We need to be ready for it. And are we the right people to do this?
You were the chosen one!
Are we the right people to handle this at a bigger scale? Like, there's so many unknowns, and we're there to face them. But until there are unknowns, there can only be a fear. Fear that motivates you and brings you forward and motivates you in the morning.
Decaf coffee.
That what keeps you going every day is this feeling of unknown and discovery.
I love it.
We have a very nice phrase at Flexi, which is, we don't want to change the way that the world interacts with plastic. We want to change the way that plastic interacts with the world after it's disposed of. So this is something that we work towards every day.
Yeah. I love it, and you're very compelling to listen to it. You sound like a super passionate individual. Your work is super inspiring. If you had to articulate your deepest passion in just a few words, what would you say?
Like outside of Flexi, you mean? Just in general?
Take it as you wish.
Flexi started in my kitchen.
Mamma mia, questa è buonissima.
I really like cooking.
I love that. Flexi started in my kitchen.
Yeah, it's I really like cooking. It's a way that I de-stress in the evening, in the weekends, or whenever I have time. And it's something that gives me peace in a life where sometimes there isn't much peace because there's a lot of instability. You never know what tomorrow entails. So having that kind of anchor is something that I really like.
It's beautiful. Quotable, and we will quote you on that.
I said what I said!
Well, that's it for another episode of Now What? Thank you for joining us once again. If you'd like to know more about the amazing work Carlo is doing with Flexi, have a look in the description box below, and you will find a link to the company website, as well as a link to Carlo's personal LinkedIn account. As always, if you liked what you saw, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. See you next time on Now What?
Yeah. 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 Locals dancing.